Welcome to the Value Builder Podcast, where we focus on real estate with a value-add mindset. Real strategies, real operators, real outcomes. Let's dive in.
Hello, everyone. Today, I have absolutely amazing guest in our show. Her name is Alina, and we were connected through some mutual friends that I know, Nikita and Rafik. Also, we connected on LinkedIn. She has an amazing business, and I'm very, very eager to dive in this conversation. But before we start, Alina, can you tell briefly about yourself to the listeners who don't know you yet? What do you do? And just briefly, what's your industry and what's exactly you're doing in real estate?
So thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here. I'm a full-time real estate investor after 25 plus years of corporate career that started with Big Four. I'm a former tax accountant who ran away from taxes and accounting and moved into the field of information technology. I had a pretty successful career in information technology, but early on understood that while I was growing in my career, so were my tax brackets. I was looking for a solution to that, and that solution for me was real estate. So I'm happy to be now completely out of the corporate career. I've been investing in real estate for the last 9 or so years. I started as an equity investor and gradually moved to become more active. I also worked at a private equity as a head of investor relations, and now my focus is commercial real estate. I obviously started with multifamily like many other folks and gradually moved to focus on other commercial real estate that includes flex, office space, as well as retail. I wrote a book last year that's called Your Legacy on Main Street. Why? Because I believe that people like you and me are entitled to invest outside of Wall Street directly into Main Street, which is represented by real estate. And I also did a TED Talk on encouraging parents to teach their kids financial literacy, because I don't believe that our public schools do good enough job, or they do not do a good job, I should rather say, in teaching kids how to prepare for the real world. So I'm very adamant about doing that with my own kids, and based on that, I did a TED Talk last year too.
That's amazing. Yeah, I can't wait to dive in those two topics I want to uncover. There's many listeners of this podcast and readers are on the LP side have a fat W-2 jobs or careers. And of course, they looking the ways how to do passive income. And of course, taxes is another thing. And you being tax professional in the past, I'm pretty sure you're going to be able to uncover that. And then second one, financial literacy for kids. I would really like to dive into that. I have 3 kids. One of mine, oldest one, he already renovated a home and flipped one home. So I definitely really relate to that, so we can dive into that. So before we start, I think we can start maybe pre-frame that. Just if you can briefly share with us your journey from IT and tax accountant to commercial real estate. How was that? Where was that decision? And maybe you can give us a little story, like in 2 minutes or so.
Sure. So in under 2 minutes, basically I saw how mine and my husband tax brackets kept growing, and that bothered me. I did not want to change the tax brackets, but I did want to change our tax obligations. In other words, to find a legal way to pay less in taxes. And in my research, real estate kept coming up. So I figured that sooner or later I have to take action, which I did finally about 9 years ago. Started looking for small properties, small multifamily in New Jersey. The numbers did not make sense. Being a former tax accountant, I started looking out of state, and as an out of state investor, by accident, I came across syndications and started investing, and that's how the journey began. Gradually, I learned more, and gradually, I decided that I wanted to be more active, started my own company, Summer Financial, on the side part-time, and as luck would have it, when pandemic hit, I got a pink slip from my cushy job. And at that point, I realized I didn't need another job because I was prepared for that time. And that's how I ended up in full-time in real estate, and very much enjoy where I'm at today. And I get to do what I love, and I get to teach other people through the coaching and mentorship how to passively invest in real estate. And as you said, Saul, save on taxes, which is a huge benefit that many people miss when they look at the returns.
Amazing. So Maybe that's a great segue to dive into that, right? For the some folks who are still exploring that thing, not going in lower bracket like you mentioned, but staying in the same bracket or higher, but being able illegally not to pay that much in taxes or offset those taxes through real estate. So why should busy professionals consider that passive real estate investing? And maybe we can touch on that. One that is that, I think unknown factor, right? When you become professional, let's say if you are a doctor, when can you use that and we cannot use that? And maybe what's out of those baby steps or maybe like 1, 2, 3 formula you advise to your clients?
Absolutely. First of all, in order to take advantage of tax advantages that real estate offers, you don't really have to be real estate professional. But your tax advantages will be somewhat limited. Why? Because the passive losses that give you a write-off can only be offset by passive gains. So that's the limitation you have. If you're married and either you or your spouse does not have a W-2 job, it doesn't matter what the job is, but one of the spouses needs to be either 1099 or be an entrepreneur, have their own business. In that case, you may be qualified to take advantage of the real estate professional status. And I'm not going to go into the requirements. People can read it online, just Google it. But there is a way to meet those requirements. The easiest way to meet the requirements is to get a realtor license and to get the hours by becoming a realtor. And then that allows you to essentially take advantage of passive real estate losses by offsetting your ordinary income. Again, that's a huge advantage that you get, but there are certain hoops that you have to jump through to get to that point. And that's essentially what allows you to have a much greater tax benefits. And so, as you know, we as real estate investors are all patiently waiting for the legislature to become effective, hopefully.
Yeah.
In a week or two, so hopefully the 100% depreciation will come back, and that will allow us to again take a bigger tax write-off again this year and hopefully for a very long time.
Now, so with that, you really hit a great point that is very timely about 100% bonus depreciation. Again, for someone who may not have 5 years under the belt, for someone who may be entering in a real estate and thinking about those terms, cost segregation, 100% bonus depreciation, can you explain to someone like my son who is 16, right? He's dabbling in real estate. What is it and why it's so important? 100% bonus depreciation.
Sure. So in terms of depreciation, commercial assets are underwritten and can be written off over the long period of time, from 25 to 35 years, depending on the asset. There is a way to accelerate that depreciation. In other words, take a bigger write-off, a higher deduction initially upfront. The way to do it is by performing cost segregation. Segregation is typically performed by engineers, and what they do is they take a property, let's say it's a retail building, and they break it down into pieces: doors, windows, flooring, roof, and so forth. Each piece of the property has its own lifespan. That lifespan is usually a lot shorter than 25 to 35 years. It could be 3, 5, 7, 10 years, and so forth. And they break it down so that you take the write-off based on the lifespan of that piece within the property. And then you sum it up. That large chunk is what you are entitled to take off in the first year after acquiring the property, and that allows you to take a much greater deduction up front, and that many people take it. Of course, it has the consequences. When the property is sold, you have to recapture it, yes, and that tax is usually at 25%. But keep in mind the time value of money and the fact that you may be at the point where you're going to buy another property, so you just can do a tax loss harvesting, and that allows you to continue offsetting taxes and hopefully pay less at that point.
Yeah, you can do it again. You just forced Axel to buy a bigger property. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's great. Yeah. And I'll add in, actually, I want to give you my napkin calculation, and being tax professional in the past. Tell me if I have holes in this thinking. Let's say, there's retail shopping centers, $5 million, maybe $1 million in land and $5 million in the building, right? So let's say if I'm buying this property for $6 million and there's $5 million in the building, in 25 years, this building will depreciate to zero. That's correct, right? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So that will be $200,000 a year. It will depreciate. Just let's say from the linear depreciation. If you don't do forced cost segregation and bonus depreciation, but as Alina said, instead of depreciating $200,000 and asking for write-offs and putting on write-offs on your income taxes every single year, I can do all $5 million within the first year and just give massive offset, which depending on what bracket you're in, you're getting this massive offset. Let's say $5 million divided from amount of investors you have in the property. Am I thinking correctly?
You are. I can't tell you the exact amount that will come out from cost segregation because it varies and because the engineers have to calculate it, but essentially it's going to be bigger, much bigger than you get from the straight line depreciation.
Exactly, yeah. And another thing in a napkin calculation, I'm thinking, let's say if there is a gain for me this year, $1 million, then in order to offset, if I use cost segregation as a tool, it means I have to buy $5 million of the property. If I'm talking retail or anything like that, that's kind of my frame is in my mind. I can legally offset that. Would that be in line?
Yes, Saul, or you can buy multiple properties. It doesn't have to be one.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
Sure.
But cumulatively, if I have $1 million gain, I'm shooting for $5 million acquisitions. I can do a cost seg, right? Perfect. Yeah.
Yes.
So I got it right. You see? Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate. All right. That's great topic. All right. So maybe that would be a segue to your TED Talk. And I'm definitely watching it tonight about financial literacy. Tell me what's the topic and what's so dear to your heart over there that you did a TED Talk.
So I am an immigrant, as you can tell by my accent, and my experience with public schools in America was through the lens of my kids. And as they were going through elementary, middle, high school, I noticed that they are coming out unprepared to the real world. And I became very passionate about educating them and essentially preparing them. And I'm not talking about PhD in finance. I'm talking basic stuff, how to manage your finances, what's a credit, life insurance, how to get a loan, the pros and cons of a loan, stuff like that. And eventually I became so passionate about this topic that I decided that I wanted to have a greater reach and reach as many parents as possible. And what could be a better platform than the one that hosts 43 million people watching it at all times? So I decided to apply for a TED Talk. The name of my TED Talk is Money Talks. Are Your Kids Listening? Why? Because it's all about encouraging parents to teach their kids financial literacy. And again, I'm not asking to teach anything in depth. Just teach from your own experience, teach about the mistakes that you made, and tell kids what not to repeat, what mistakes not to repeat. And obviously, they're not going to remember everything, but if they remember at least one or two things from your experience, they will benefit tremendously. And that's what I was doing, and that's what my TED Talk is about. I'm actually giving real practical advice for parents that have kids anywhere between 5 to 18 years old. So essentially school years, as to what they can do at home to teach their kids financial literacy. And of course, there's a little bit of humor in that talk as well to make it more fun.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Yeah. I'll piggyback on that. Last year during the summer break, I did for my oldest son, the teenager who was 17, a class for his friends. I think it was 7 or 8 of them. And it was just about buying, renovating, and selling houses. That's how I started in real estate. I flipped hundreds and hundreds of homes by renovating them. And I taught them, well, at least I had classes, which was, I think, 6 or 7 classes. Now, how to market, how to sell, how to look for deals, how to underwrite them, how to direct to seller marketing, how to renovate, how to run construction, how to run P&L, how to do pro forma. And yeah, those 17-year-old, they were really engaged. And my son, he flipped and renovated one home, and he sold it And
Impressive.
yeah, was really proud of them. And definitely the tools, they're available not only from me, from YouTube, right? There's so many tools. And if the people just be on that path, they can be financially free and much more safe, set to go after the school. So that's great. That's amazing.
Absolutely. Kudos to your son for taking advantage of your knowledge, essentially, and doing first flip. I'm sure it's not the last one, and kudos to him for doing it so early and not being afraid to do it. That's amazing.
Thank
Great
you.
job on your
Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely. I'm gonna tell them. Well, I think we're top of an hour. Tell Alina to our readers and listeners where they can find you. And I'll point you to a TED Talk in a link somewhere below, but where else they can find you?
Absolutely. Thank you, Saul. They can find me on my website, samafinancial.com, or they can type alinatrigub.com, or they can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. But I primarily spend most of my time on LinkedIn for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. No, thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Saul. It's been a pleasure.
You've been listening to the Value Builder podcast. For more strategies, stories, and episodes, head to valuebuilder.co or subscribe on your favorite app. Always make it better than you found it and keep adding value. See you in the next one.